Hi and welcome to Penser Bank. My name is Markus Almerud, I'm an analyst here at the bank. Today we're going to talk about Ependion. Ependion is a company that has grown significantly over the past couple of years. They're large in train and tracks, and the second largest area is energy. Today we're going to dig down in energy. We're going to make a deep dive. We're going to go to Västerås, where that segment is based, and we're going to talk to David Åkerman, who's heading that segment. So a lot has happened in the energy markets over the past years, and renewables keep growing at the expense of fossil fuels. Tell us a little bit about the trends. What are you seeing on the market?
Yeah, the energy market is really undergoing a transformation. Over the last couple of years, more has happened than in many years before. And it's really driven by a few mega trends. Of course, decarbonization is at the core of the transformation, where we have to battle the emissions that we have in the world. This has a deep impact on the energy market, of course, where the electricity and energy segment is at the core of solving these problems and helping with the decarbonization of the world. The energy market is rapidly moving into a digitalization and into a more communicating world, and where the production mix is changing.
Mm-hmm. And if we talk about growth rates and we talk about energy production, because I think we are all aware that we're going to need a lot more electricity and energy going forward. What kind of growth rates are we talking about?
The interesting thing is that the energy consumption as such is not predicted to increase that much, because we have a lot of efficiency ongoing as well in the world. But the energy mix is changing rapidly, and the energy consumption based on electricity is going to increase twofold the coming 15 years.
Okay.
So the overall energy consumption is not going to change that much. It's actually with all the efficiency ongoing and so on in the consumption side, it is not that big increase that we see up until 2050. But on the production side, we see that the production of electricity will change rapidly. So consumption of energy will shift out of fossil and into pure electricity, sorry. Mm-hmm. And then the production of electricity will also shift into renewables. So production of electricity will be doubled the coming 15 years, and production of renewables will be doubled the coming 15 years.
So it's more a question of that's the core of the issue is the mix within the energy production rather than anything else.
Yes.
And if we move on, we talk about the grid, because this electricity needs to come out. So what are the implications of all this for the power grid? Yeah,
the traditional grid, as we have come to know it for a long time, is based on these big production centers, and with the energy flowing in one direction from big production centers into the consumption side. And this is about to change, and being at the core of this is, of course, that we have prosumers and active consumers in the network, and that the energy will flow in both directions. So in the next, let's say, grid in this transformation is bidirectional energy flow and bidirectional monetary flow. And solving this needs to utilize communication.
And there's a lot of talk in general about digitalization, and there's a lot happening in digitalization. And where is the energy sector in terms of this, in terms of digitalization, readiness, and where are they?
The energy sector was very early in adopting communication. It started long before internet and before we had the growth of digitalization as we know it today. So it started already in the 70s with communication and data communication. But that was always on the, let's say, transmission side, the high energy, high voltage side. And what is now happening, what we now see is that the communication and the digitalization is going out into the grid, into the medium voltage grids and into the low voltage grids. And here, traditionally, this was not an area where we had a lot of digitalization, but now this is a key enabler for the solutions that we need in this energy sector to do this transformation. So communication out into the grids, out into the low voltage sides, enabling communication with rural grid, with urban grids, all of that requires communication and digitalization.
Mm-hmm. And the energy sector is it's an important sector, an important segment, preferred segment for Westermo that you're focusing on.
Yes.
Where is Westermo in all of this? So where do you plug in? Where are you in the value chain?
So Westermo is making products for critical communication, and if you increase communication as we now see in the energy sector, it's not just about fiber communication to a few select plants. It's not about just telecom for certain special places, which we have been very good at in the energy sector. It is about mass deployment of edge devices, communication in a very large scale to many sites. Here, Westermo comes in with our products to support this, with stable, reliable products that are capable of existing in this very difficult environment. The energy sector is a very challenging environment. It's not like mining or anything like that, but it's like we have a lot of electricity disturbances. It's noisy from an EMC and an emissions side of things. So here you have to have robust, reliable products. And it's also an exposed area where cybersecurity have to be built in from the beginning, because you get also a lot of attack vectors when you digitize all of your grid. So this is also a key enabler.
Mm-hmm. And if I talk about the value chain, and you say that you have the production on the one end, and you have at the other end you have the consumption, and then you have kind of the different levels in between. Which of these segments is the most important for you?
Westermo are present in all of these sectors, but we see that the biggest growth area for us would be the medium voltage and the low voltage area in the grid. That is let's say, the big networks that are local or rural or in the cities, where you have to be able to deploy a lot of communication devices. Here we cannot dig up the streets in the big cities to put in fiber everywhere, and the old copper wires that were available through telephone companies and so on are being outdated. So wireless communication are very important for Westermo going forward. We have a very nice product portfolio there, and this is a very important growth area for us. But we are also present in the other sectors of the grid as well.
But it's a new focus area for relatively. You've been there before, but it's a new focus area.
Yes.
What would you say are the critical elements for you to succeed?
The critical elements are, I mean, we are doing very robust equipment that are true to spec in this area. We follow all of these standards. We have the cybersecurity in place. We are ready for that environment. But the most important thing for us is to find strategic customers and understand the markets going back into this area which we were in before. Here we are well established in some markets and some countries. In others we are newcomers. So finding the strategic customers, the right ones where we can find a partnership and see that our products are good for that market, that is a key enabler for us. So it's not so much about the products, because we have a very good product portfolio. Of course, we need to expand it and work with that product portfolio, but it's actually more about finding the right partners, the right customers, and be strategically correct in selecting these businesses.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned critical customers. I assume that I mean, what would be needed, what would be good for you, would be to have, you know, a larger reference customers, which is well known in the market.
Yes.
And then, if you look at those kind of customers, what is the attitude among them when you meet with them? Is it more? I mean, is it more come back when you have another larger customer, or is it more, you know, are they open to test your products?
No, I would say that we are well received by the customers. We have a good standing in the business as being true to spec and having high quality products. So my experience is that we are very welcome by most customers to have these discussions. A lot of the let's say bigger utilities and power companies, they have type of approval processes where they want to test the products and go through testing and so on before they can move on with an agreement. And we are accepted and doing all of these tests together with these customers to make sure that we are approved and accepted.
Very interesting. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome back to the studio. Let's look a little bit at the market and what it means for Ependion. We think that electricity infrastructure is the next key growth area for Ependion. Ependion makes routers, switches and industrial panels for harsh environments. We have a fair value of 143 to 145 Swedish krona and the share is at 114. The investment case in short is that we see structural growth in the majority of the end markets and we see double-digit organic growth on average in coming years. Margins have expanded significantly, but there is more to go for. And in addition, the risk has decreased as the business unit Beijer Electronics, which historically has been very volatile, has improved its trough margin level. So talking about the electricity and the energy market. So we see large changes in this market overall. Looking at consumption, the mix is changing. So consumption, we expect consumption to grow 14 years in total until 2050. There's plenty of efficiency gains to be made here. But the mix in this consumption is changing. So we should see about 50% electricity and hydrogen by 2050, and it's currently about 20 to 25%. Power consumption will grow threefold over the coming decades. Looking at production, the mix is also here changing. Renewables will take a larger and larger share. We expect renewables to double in the coming 15 years and will go to close to 90% by 2050. And this is up from 29% in 2020. So what does this mean? Well, it creates a huge amount of investment needs. Looking at the value chain, the direction of flows are also changing. Traditionally, we've seen energy flows from power generation to consumers going in one direction and money flowing back. Going forward, we expect this to change. We expect to see flows in both directions. We expect changes in the microenvironment. These changes will lead to significant investment needs at all levels in the value chain. If I look at grids, for instance, they are insufficient. So as an example, Swedish Postal Services, PostNord, they warned a couple of weeks ago that they will not be able to meet their electrification needs as the grid stands today. Not only is the current grid insufficient, there are also huge replacement needs over time, over the coming decade. So looking at Europe, 2/3 of the grid is more than 20 years old, and 25% is more than 40 years old. In the US, this situation is even worse. And as an example, in Europe, the annual level of investment in 2020 to 2030 is expected to be 34 to 39 billion euros compared to the average of 23 billion euros in 2015 to 2019. So marked level up. So this is hence an attractive market to be in. So how is Ependion benefiting from this or affected by this? Well, as the complexity in the value chain increases, there's also an increased need of communication throughout the value chain. So Ependion serves a large part of this value chain. Their product goes in at several segments throughout this value chain. And as a conclusion, the energy segment, which today is about half of train and trackside, have the potential to become larger than train and tracks. In conclusion, Ependion sees structural growth in several of their end markets. Energy is one of the most important ones. We will see big changes in the energy infrastructure over the coming decades, and Ependion will be part of it. Thank you for listening.